Most people dream of buying fancy cars and mansions if they get rich. I dream of buying Cheetah Man 2 on the NES. Game collecting is a fun hobby, but occasionally you have to wonder, should I buy this video game or pay off my credit card debt? Because man, can video games on the secondhand market go for some insane prices. The name of the game is supply and demand. If it's a game people really want, then resellers and scalpers can jack up the prices to insane levels. One game that recently shot up in price online was Piglet's Big Game. Piglet's Big Game is a 2003 adventure game made to tie in with the Piglet's Big movie film that also came out in 2003. In this game, you play as Piglet and you go into the dreams of the various other Winnie the Pooh characters. It's a fairly unassuming little licensed game at first glance, but if you look a little closer, the game actually has some pretty creepy vibes. Some of the songs sound like they could be from a Silent Hill game. In fact, one of the songs is in Silent Hill, technically, because the song Chthonic Symphony from the Silent Hill 2 remake uses what appears to be the same exact sample that Piglet's Big Game used. What's even stranger is that the game kinda has some survival horror elements. Obviously there's the spooky soundtrack, but a few of the levels, especially the Eeyore level, have a very unnerving atmosphere. You're being chased by these huge elephants and other scary enemies, there's puzzle solving, and occasionally it has these really weird camera angles. It turns out these survival horror elements were a conscious decision by the development team, because the game's director, Pascal Stardella from Doki Doki Studio, recently tweeted that Luigi's Mansion and Resident Evil of all things was a big inspiration for this game. Resident Evil is of course a survival horror classic, and Piglet's Big Game was designed to sort of be a survival horror game for kids. People finding all of this stuff out led to the game skyrocketing in price. All of this happened about a month ago in November 2024. Before then, the game was generally going for around $10 to $15, and now you can find listings on eBay for up to $100, if not more. But while we're talking about licensed games, let's talk about Jaws on the NES, a shooter released in 1987. This game is currently going for over $800 loose. For those who may not know, a game being loose means it's just the game. No manual, no box, no extra stuff. Just the game itself, whether it's a cartridge or a disc. Then you have complete in-box games, aka CIB, which are games that have the whole package, the game, the box, and the manual. Having all of that extra stuff makes the value of the game a lot higher, especially for NES games, since they came in these cardboard boxes which don't typically hold up very well over the course of time compared to, say, the plastic cases that games typically use nowadays. As a result, a complete NES game with a clean box will often go for considerably higher than a loose copy. However, even the loose copy of Jaws on NES is incredibly expensive. The reason is because this particular copy of the game that we're looking at is a somewhat special version of Jaws on the NES. It's the 5-screw version. Compare that to the normal 3-screw version that's only $10 loose. When the NES first came out in North America, NES game cartridges were held together with 5 screws on the back. However, sometime around late 1987 or 1988, Nintendo switched over to the newer 3-screw cartridges. It's still unknown as to why Nintendo switched over to the 3-screw cartridges, but it ended up becoming the standard for NES games moving forward. Now, a lot of 5-screw NES games are not much more expensive than their 3-screw counterparts. In fact, some of them go for roughly the same price. However, what makes Jaws special is that it was released at the tail end of 1987 in November. As a result, not too long after Jaws came out, Nintendo switched over to the 3-screw cartridges, which makes the 5-screw version of Jaws a lot more difficult to find. Rarity is a big part of why some games are more expensive than others. Let's talk about another rare variation on the NES, and that's the Left Bros variant of Super Mario Bros. 3. Super Mario Bros. 3 is a platformer released in 1988, and it was an exceptionally hyped up and popular game. As such, copies of the game are rather plentiful. However, there's a specific version of Mario 3 that's less common, the Left Bros variant. For the normal version of Super Mario Bros. 3 on both the box art, the cartridge, and the manual, the Bros in Super Mario Bros. Is on the right side next to the 3 and below the I and the O in Mario. However, in Left Bros copies, the Bros is on the left side underneath the M in Mario. The back of the Left Bros box art even has different screenshots compared to the normal version. These Left Bros Mario 3s were early production copies that at some point Nintendo decided to stop producing in favor of the normal version. There are some minor in-game differences between the Left Bros and the normal variants, but from what I've gathered, it's mostly just grammar and name changes. As you've probably surmised, Left Bros Mario 3 isn't very different at all compared to the normal Mario 3, but even small changes can lead to noticeable differences in price. Loose copies of normal Mario 3 go for around $17, and loose copies of Left Bros Mario 3 go for about $25. CIB copies of normal Mario 3 go for around $65, while Left Bros copies go for around $100 CIB. However, sometimes even common games can be super pricey, like the Pokemon games. Which Pokemon games, you might be asking? All of them. Well, at least the classic mainline games from the start of the series in 1996 to the end of Gen 5 with Pokemon Black and White 2 in 2012. The Pokemon games routinely rank among the highest selling games on their respective platforms, selling tens of millions of copies. These games are incredibly popular, which makes them incredibly common. Common games, even from popular franchises, are often quite cheap, just because there's so many copies of them. So it's insane that Pokemon games are so dang expensive on the secondhand market. If I had to make a guess as to why Pokemon games are so expensive, well, a part of it is probably because of the trading card game boom in 2020. During the lockdown, trading cards like Pokemon experienced substantial jumps in prices online on the reseller market. This in turn had a sort of side effect where the Pokemon games also experienced a boost in prices. As a whole, in 2020, with everyone cooped up in their houses, there was a massive nostalgia boom, with tons of old school video game prices skyrocketing. But I think another reason why Pokemon games in particular are so expensive is just that Pokemon games are personal in a way that I think a lot of games aren't. The big appeal of Pokemon is being able to form a team of cute little animals. You can nickname them, battle with them, and go on an adventure together with them, which makes you form a bond with these creatures. And by extension, you form a bond with your personal copy of the game itself. Add on the fact that old Pokemon games only had one save file, which meant you couldn't have a bunch of different teams on one cartridge. You had your one team for your one copy, and that one team of Pokemon was special, which I think makes a lot of people more emotionally attached to their copies, hence the high price tags. Another reason is likely because the old school mainline games aren't officially available anywhere as of the time I'm writing this video. The best you're getting on Switch Online is the Pokemon TCG game and Pokemon Stadium. No Red and Blue, no Gold and Silver, no Ruby and Sapphire, no nothing. And as we've seen with games like Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, re-releasing, remastering, or even remaking a game can cause the price of the original to drop. Obviously, some gamers are still going to be attached to the original game, but for a lot of people, just having an accessible way to play the game officially is good enough for them. Or who knows, maybe I'm just overanalyzing everything and the reason why Pokemon games are so expensive is because people just really love Pokemon. Whatever the case may be, these retro games are absurdly expensive. If you're interested in retro games, I have a series where I look at how old video games got updates before the internet was used for easy patches. Here's another video you might enjoy as well. That's all I've got to talk about for today though, so thanks for watching y'all, and have a great rest of your day.